Hey now, how's it going? Welcome back to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Herlock, and if you listen to this show regularly, you know that I have a handful of favorite phrases. I like to say that cannabis loves community. I really like to say that luck favors the prepared. And maybe you've heard me make the joke, how do you make God laugh? Have a plan. Which, is similar to that phrase, is it Steinbeck, is it Bobby Burns? The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. So yeah, welcome to my week. I had big plans for this show this week. I had a couple of interviews lined up, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, all of my interviewees had to cancel, postpone, and reschedule. So today, I'm sort of, looking at a blank slate here, which is exciting and a little daunting. So I'm going to do a few different things on today's show. We'll have a few nuggets of hemp news, right? And I've got an announcement about a hemp event coming up here in Lancaster County this month. And then I've got a few other updates for you about some travel and things. The other thing I want to do today is share with you the trailer for a new podcast that we're working on here at Lancaster Farming. It's not hemp related, and this trailer is only about 2 minutes long, so it's not a huge time commitment for you, but check it out. Let me know what you think. I would love your feedback on it. In lieu of having a fresh interview for you, I am going to play a recent conversation that I had with Cameron McIntosh, the Hempcrete builder here in Pennsylvania at Americhanvre Cast-Hemp. He visited the studio back in the beginning of November to talk about the Hempcrete panels that we built for this studio. I played a little bit of that conversation on a show a few weeks ago, but today I'm going to play the entire interview, which is only a little bit about the panels, but it's mostly about Cameron's projects that he's working on or projects around the country that he's involved in or super excited about. And, it's about Hempcrete. So we talk a lot about Hempcrete. And I always just love talking to Cameron, and I learn so much when I do. So I think maybe you will too. So I originally published the entire interview with Cameron as a video on YouTube. So maybe some of you have already seen that video, but judging from the analytics on YouTube, most of you haven't. Okay, so let's just get it started here. We're going to take a quick sponsor break, and then I'll be right back with a few nuggets of hemp news. Our show today is made possible with generous support from IND Hemp in Fort Benton, Montana, where they believe in the goodness of hemp. IND Hemp provides innovative agricultural products and services. They connect American farmers with the pioneers and businesses that see hemp as a way to bring real and lasting change to our communities and planet. IND Hemp, check them out at indhemp.com. Our show was also made possible today with generous support from Impactful Ventures, based in Massachusetts. Impactful Ventures is a public benefit investment company focused on supporting startups and other initiatives that play a vital role in addressing the adverse effects of climate change. You can check them out at impactfulventures.org. Thank you to our sponsors for your support. And let's get into some nuggets of hemp news today for this. Where are we? It's today is December 13th, so we're just about halfway there. We've got a few weeks left until the new year. Crazy. Okay, so I've got a handful of news nuggets here for you. I gave the Chat GPT robot the rest of the month off, so I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way. Here is a story that I found on the Fresno Bee out of California, and the headline reads, "Industrial hemp will be used to build affordable housing for farm workers in Huron." So this story is written by Maria G. Ortiz Briones, and it talks about this community in Fresno County that is, like the headline said, they're building farm worker housing out of industrial hemp. So, yeah. All right, this next headline. Well, actually, this is the third installment of a 5-part series written by Robert Hoban, and this one is called This Ain't No Loophole, Hemp Economics and the Market. So, yeah, you can imagine what the story's about. I'll put a link to it on the show page. This whole series is fantastic, so hats off to Bob Hoban for writing this stuff. And just a heads up, I am in the process of scheduling with his people to get him on the show here for early in the new season, starting at the end of January 2024. All right, so this next story comes to us from Textile World, and here is an example of a headline that probably should have been edited. It says, Panda High Plains Hemp Gin marks final stage commissioning to bring largest industrial hemp processing facility in the Western Hemisphere online. Yeah, talk about tortured syntax. And the story says that Panda Biotech announced this week that the construction of their processing facility is complete and the official commissioning process is underway now. So this is amazing. I'm going to try to learn more about Panda Biotech. I know we've been hearing about them for many, many years now. When I did that tour in 2021, I reached out to them to see if I could come check them out on the tour down there in Texas, but I didn't hear from them then, but maybe I'll hear from them now because they've got a whole lot more to talk about. So, okay, moving on. Here is a story that it's in a few places, but I'm choosing the marijuanamoment.net version of it. And it says that New York Governor vetoes bills to allow hemp seed in animal feed, calling on state to collect more information on safety. On last week's News Nuggets, I reported that these bills were headed to the governor's desk, but it looks like she vetoed them because she needs more information. So that's a little disheartening. But anyway, so all right, so that's the News Nuggets from here in Ephrata, Pennsylvania. I mentioned in the intro an announcement about a hemp event here in Lancaster County. So next Thursday, December 21st, down there in Holtwood, which is in southern Lancaster County, friend of the show, Steve Groff, is holding a farmer-to-farmer meeting. He sent me a flyer and it says, "What will it take for you to grow industrial hemp? You're invited to a farmer-to-farmer meeting led by those who are riding the roller coaster. Why are they positive about the future? What are the obstacles to overcome? What is the right opportunity for you? Come, be engaged, meet others who are serious about growing hemp for a real market." So this is at Steve Groff's farm, Cedar Meadow Farm, at the Education Center there in Holtwood. He'll have some special guests, including Sarah Mitchell from King's Agri-Seeds and Dwayne Sugars from the iHemp Catalyst. All right, I'm going to be there too for a little while because he told me there was going to be lunch. So you know the motto, safety first, then lunch. No, Steve wanted me to iterate that this is for serious growers only. If you are, in southeastern Pennsylvania or, a little farther out and you are serious about growing fiber and grain, reach out to Steve. I'll put a link to his contact information on the show page for this episode. He'd like you to RSVP by Wednesday of next week. Space is limited, and there will be an equipment display after lunch. Okay, so where are we now? So yeah, here it is, Wednesday. By this time tomorrow, I am going to be on the road. That's right, I am taking a little mini hemp tour. I am going to Massachusetts for a couple of days. I have plans to visit Michael Montero from Impactful Ventures. I mentioned his hemp house was featured in the New York Times on last week's show. I'm going to go up there and see that house, take a tour of that house, because yeah, I can. So looking forward to that. And I'm going to interview Michael. We'll get a tour of the house, maybe shoot some video. So I'll have something for you next week on that. But that's not the only thing I'm doing. From there, I'm going to go visit Jeremy Kletke at his Massachusetts farm. We're going to learn about his breeding program and, have some fun conversations with him. From there, I'm headed up to Newburyport, Massachusetts, where I'm going to visit the Hillside Center for Sustainable Living. This is where they are building a community. I guess phase 2 of it, they're using Hempcrete. You're going to hear about this project and also about the Cape Cod Hemp House in the interview with Cameron McIntosh today, because he's been involved in both of these Hempcrete projects. So I'm excited to get up there to Massachusetts and see the folks up there. And then next week's show is probably going to be my interviews from the field. All right, so I'll have some cool things to share with you. I know last week I laid out a plan where I was going to have a couple more episodes and then a year in review and then take a break. And yeah, that might all still happen, but you know, the wheel is still in spin. And how do you make God laugh? Have a plan. Okay, so before we get into the interview with Cameron McIntosh talking about Hempcrete, I'm going to play the short trailer for a new project we're working on here at Lancaster Farming. It's called The Farmhouse, and it is, well, here, I'll let my colleagues Candace and Stephanie tell you all about it.
It's hectic, but peaceful.
It's tough, but satisfying.
It can feel isolating, but the community is really strong. Hi, I'm Candace Wierzbowski.
And I'm Stephanie Spiker.
And this is The Farmhouse by Lancaster Farming.
This is our way of opening our doors for women in agriculture, welcoming them to a place where women can share information and find common ground and support each other. On this podcast, we'll be talking to women across the agricultural spectrum, the women who are out there every day doing the work, in barns and fields, in classrooms, even in the halls of our Capitol buildings. Because if anything's true about farming, it's that there is always work to be done. We'll be discussing what these women are doing, the challenges they're facing, and why they've chosen to pursue work in an industry that, let's face it, is still male-dominated in many ways. But not everyone sees it that way. And there's room in the farmhouse for those opinions too.
A couple of years ago, we had some back and forth at Lancaster Farming about the term women in agriculture and whether the label was necessary. Readers and a few of our staff members weighed in on the topic. While some felt the term was still relevant and important, others disagreed, some of them women. They argued that the work was what was important, not the farmer's gender. Focus too much on that, they argued, and you're not paying attention to what really matters.
It's a good point, but like many things, the situation is more nuanced than that. We believe we can acknowledge the work these women are doing while still acknowledging that for many of them to get where they are today, they had a different, potentially more difficult road to navigate than most men, and many of them are still navigating that road.
Maybe our guests will agree with us on that, and maybe they won't, but we're pretty sure we can all agree on one thing. The work that they're doing is important, and more people should know about it.
So grab a cup of coffee and find a comfy chair and join us here at the farmhouse.
You can find The Farmhouse starting January 2024 on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Or you can listen on lancasterfarming.com.
Yeah, so how about that? I'm super excited to be part of this project and really looking forward to supporting my coworkers as they go down this road. So I'm thankful that I have a few years now of experience to share with them and help them craft what I hope will be a really interesting show about women in agriculture. Okay, now, so the blank slate is filling up here. So as promised, here comes my interview with Cameron McIntosh. And yeah, the first few minutes of this might sound familiar to you, but you probably haven't heard the whole thing. So anyway, here we go, and I'll see you on the other side.
Coming together.
Action. Cameron McIntosh, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp podcast studio for our first ever in-person interview.
Live and in person here from 21 West Main in Ephrata.
Yeah.
About 20 minutes from where I grew up. It's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah?
Nice to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
welcome back. Welcome back. So I thought you would be the perfect first guest here because of these panels that we made together. We made Hempcrete sound panels. So yeah, I don't know what to do here because I've never done an in-person interview, but yeah, so I don't know if the folks listening can see it as well because there is a video component. We're shooting video here today. It's not quite Joe Rogan, but
Hey, it feels like it though, man.
Does it?
Look at us.
Yeah.
Look at us,
Yeah.
man.
headphones, microphones, comfortable chairs.
That's right. A little bit of hemp in the studio.
Some hemp in the studio. Let's talk about that. Can you maybe first describe to me what I was trying to do when I came to you with this project?
You want me to describe
Yeah.
what you wanted to do?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think, with your new office here, you were noticing a little bit of ugly sound reflection
bounce in the room.
for recording. And now that we're, I would say, firmly post-COVID, you needed to come back to the office. Time to get out of the house. So
yeah, they enticed me by giving me this studio. They're like,
Right.
Eric, come back and you
Right.
can have a podcast studio.
Right.
Which, yeah, it worked. Here I am.
High quality
Yeah.
corner office with a view.
Well, it's got a view of a little alley, but yeah, it's
still a
I
view.
got windows.
It's still a view.
I got a door.
Yeah. So yeah, we were just trying to take advantage of the, what is basically at this point anecdotal evidence around the sound deadening, sound absorption qualities of the material, right? So, and this is something that at the beginning of my career making, planter boxes, that was one of the first things I tried to do. And why? Well, the thought was that, maybe people didn't have to go through the financial pain of doing their entire house out of hempcrete. Let's think about ways that we can get hempcrete into the space, and
Little by little.
little by little. Yeah.
Right.
And get a little bit of some of those great qualities, like in this case, the sound absorption, maybe a little bit of humidity balancing and, air purification. So, again, a lot of that stuff right now is anecdotal in hempcrete. I can tell you as a matter of experience, just from finishing houses, that, there is sort of a spiritual quality when you walk into a hempcrete house that's finished. And I think a lot of that comes from that mass feeling of having this material in the space, and also what it does sound quality wise. It makes it feel like your voice is, right here by your head, so yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah. When you walk into a hemp space, you can feel the difference immediately.
You can.
I remember that because the first hemp space I went into was the Hemp House on Wheels.
That's
the time.
right.
What did you call that? What was the official name of that?
The Hemp House on Wheels.
Oh, okay, got it right. Yeah. So that was back in 2019.
Yep.
I met you and Drew Oberholzer and Anna Konopetskaya at their farm in Blandon, and you were all there in the barn working on this trailer.
That's right, man. Yeah, we just hemped it. I think we just finished hemping it, and we were sort of in the only downtime that we got in that whole process, which was waiting for the hemp to cure enough to put the plaster on. So I was thinking about that today, man. I messed up. I was going to bring you a nice framed picture of that podcast.
Oh.
There's that one great picture of all four of us sitting there in the hemp house, man, from humble beginnings.
Right, right. Yeah, there wasn't even a roof on that.
No, yeah.
And I had cobbled together like 4 different microphones, and I think I was recording into my camera, my phone, and a digital recorder, and just, I haven't gone back to listen to that to hear the sound quality, but we've come a long way since then.
Yeah.
Hempcrete sound panels, some decent microphones.
How about it? Headphones.
These wonderful orange chairs. Yeah. All right. So, and I appreciate that you didn't think I was crazy when I wanted to build these panels.
No.
And I'm very thankful that my boss and his boss were like, yeah, of course we need some hempcrete panels in there. Of course we do. We have to stay on brand. So let's talk about the process.
Sure.
Because I wanted 3 panels. They're 2 foot by 4 foot.
Yep.
They're 3.5 inches deep because they're built into 2x4 frames. And you were like, well, let's do the calculations. We did math to figure out how much material we needed. We figured out how much, square footage was
cubic volume. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. For Hempcrete,
3D.
we always go by cubic volume. So for a house, it would be, the length and the height of your wall times the thickness in inches over 12. So if we're 6 inches thick, it would be 6 over 12, which is 0.5. So that's how we would figure that out. In this case, it's 3.5 over 12 to get your volume, right? And that's how we do all of our estimates. It's always a cubic volume estimate. And once I know that, it kind of drives the rest of the process in terms of estimating how much material we need, how much time it'll take to install it. And in this case, this is something that I've seen colleagues of mine do around the country, which is adding pigments to kind of highlight that gorgeous stratigraphy that you get, right? This sort of strata of different layers that you can get when you're packing.
Right, because you're
by
building
hand.
it from the bottom up.
You're doing it in lifts, yeah. So we took some liberties on those lifts. Ordinarily, they wouldn't be so
Dramatic,
lifelike and rhythmic.
Yeah.
But yeah, mixing in a little bit of what was it? We used the real milk paint, which is a casein-based milk protein based paint. It's really cool.
It shows up. Powder.
It shows up as a powder.
Yeah.
A little disconcerting when you open the paint can, wondering if you got the wrong shipment. But yeah, it's cool. And then and because it's a natural pigment, it's an iron oxide based pigment, so it works well with the lime. It won't react to the lime. And we know that with other work that's been done, this paint in particular, milk paint, can be used over masonry. Which is important, meaning that it's not polymer fortified. There's no plasticizer in it, which you find in a lot of paints.
Okay.
And that would make it so that it wouldn't be breathable. So, when we're talking about doing Hempcrete, you can, for exterior walls, you always want to plaster it because this is not airtight. What we've done here is not airtight, but that wasn't the purpose here. The purpose here was for, decoration and to kind of capitalize on the
sound quality.
On the sound deadening. Yeah. So we would never do this on an exterior wall in a build, which is another cool reason why it's nice to, have the opportunity to do it. Because again, you need that airtightness layer that comes from either the plaster or a vapor permeable building wrap like Mento. So, but you can do, and I've seen a lot of people do feature walls inside of a home, maybe an interior wall.
And you could do that to like just a traditional house. Like you could cut it into the studs and like put in like a window frame and build something neat into your wall.
Yeah, do the wall in between the kitchen and the dining room or something like that.
Right.
And even from a an energy efficiency perspective, if you have a home that's properly positioned, facing south. In the winter, you can get some of the low rays of the sun, into those windows, and that's why builders do that. So if you think about it, actually retrofitting a single wall in your home, the most important wall to retrofit would be the one that gets the sunlight during the winter,
right.
And then you're creating a thermal bank. So that sunlight entering the space will hit that wall, and the Hempcrete will absorb it and warm up, and you'll get again some of those benefits, those livability benefits of having the material without having to redo your entire house or start over.
There's very little chance that these will get direct sunlight with my window situation. But getting back to real milk paint, I'll just say that that company was really easy to work with and super friendly, on the phone, placed the order, they had it shipped, like within a day.
Definitely,
so, shout out to Real Milk Paint. And I think they're down in Tennessee.
Yeah, somewhere like that. Yeah, they're on the East Coast here, and they make a variety of different products. So anybody that's a maker, woodworker, even home improvement, it's a great way to get a high toxicity finish material in vinyl paint out of the home.
Okay.
And using something more natural like this. Yeah.
All right, so getting back to the panel, so we came up with that cubic foot thing, and you had me order, I don't know, there's a ratio between hemp herds and the lime, and it was like I bought maybe 2 50-pound bags of lime, and I forget how much herd, and then these 3 different colors.
Yep.
We used like a dark blue, a medium blue, and then a whitish blue.
Yeah.
And it was back in... think it was in the spring, back
Yep.
in April or May.
Yep.
And the Sunflower film crew, they were there,
Yep.
Jordan and Maxwell, so they filmed the whole thing.
Yep.
And
It was the birth of Hollywood Herlock.
is that what it was? And so first we built the frames. I showed up with the lumber, and
Yep.
we put together these 2x4 frames.
Correct. Yeah.
2 foot by 4 foot out of 2x4s.
Right.
And then we stood them up on a table, and we had a backing on them too, because we were working like the front side.
Right.
And we had to push the hempcrete into and sort of build it up from there. But
In lifts. Yeah.
But first we had to mix the is that a slurry? Do you call it a slurry?
Yeah, I like to. So the product that we used for the binder was from Limeworks in Telford, PA.
Mm-hmm.
That's limeworks.us. Some of your listeners are probably familiar with them. And they make a pre-bagged hempcrete binder. And again, for your listeners that are familiar with me, that's where my hempcrete journey started, was at Limeworks in Telford. So yeah, you bought 2 bags of their Ecologic binder, which the base of that binder is actually a Pennsylvania lime.
Okay.
Which is really cool. So nice local lime product. Only works for casts in place. Can't run it through my spray system, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd be using it for that as well.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we take that material, and because it's a true high calcium lime, we make a slurry out of it first, right? So we add the water first because the lime is what needs that hydration. And the hemp hurd will rob that hydration from the equation if you were to add that first. So,
okay.
And it's different to the way that we mix for spray applied. If you've seen that, we actually add hurd and binder dry and then water, but that's specific to our process. So yeah, we make a slurry in my mixer, right? Mask up, gloves up. And we add the appropriate amount of water into the mixer, and then put the bag of lime into that. And the reason being, occupationally, it's dangerous to have free lime powder just kind of in a mixer floating around. So that's another high quality reason to make a slurry ahead of time, because you introduce that powder right into the water, cuts down a little bit on the dust. And then once you have a nice slurry, it's kind of like a loose milkshake, right? Mm-hmm. You know, we add the hemp hurd. And then from there, we brought it in, and I recall my back being out.
Yeah, at that point, you were like
at that point,
the director that came out there. That's when I took over all labor.
I made Eric kneel down on the floor and with his big gloves, mix the color into the pre-mixed hempcrete.
Right, because once we mixed the lime and the lime and the hemp hurd, we had it in these like big buckets.
Yep.
And so I had maybe like 5 different buckets, maybe it was more. And we did it one color at a time.
Yeah,
so
we were
dosing
the color in carefully to make sure that we were getting the sort of pattern that you were looking for.
Right, and I had super low expectations, which is like, that's sort of like my thing in life. Like, keep your expectations low and you're never disappointed. So I wasn't sure where it was going, but the way you described it to me, you know, with the pigment, I'm like, oh, it's like pouring colored sand into a jar. You know,
right.
You make those sand jars. And so, you know, my gears started turning. I'm like, all right, we're going to try for, I wasn't sure if it was, well, I had, like I said, low expectations. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I was hoping for some sense of movement, some sense of space.
Yep.
And we got that. You know, it kind of,
I think so,
either looks like, you know, mountains, Appalachian mountains, or water.
Picasso blue.
Yeah, it's my blue period. Yeah. And so
it came out really well, and I like that your expectations were low, because I like to under-promise and over-deliver.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened here.
And that's what happened.
Yeah. Like, I was blown away by what they look like. You know, the end of that day.
You didn't know what to expect, and I didn't tell you what to expect.
Yeah, but also that day we were on the phone with Greg Wilson, and we sort of worked out a deal where he sent us some hemp wood for the frame of it.
Yeah, man.
So shout out to Greg Wilson at Hempwood. Couldn't have done this without you.
Yeah, and really the icing on the old Hempcrete cake here, huh? How cool is this?
It is cool. And what Greg said is that this is the first time that Hempwood and Hempcrete have come together in some kind of project. It's like, like
it's a match made in
chocolate
heaven.
in the peanut butter.
That's right, man. Yeah.
Two great
Did we just
tastes.
become best friends?
Oh, should we hold hands for the rest of the interview? So it was a process. Like we worked on this back in the spring, and then they had to sit and cure for a while, right?
That's right. Well,
how long was that curing process?
Oh, I don't remember. At least 2 months, wasn't it?
Yeah, because it was early July when we got back together.
Right, and that was before we went to Montana.
It was before Montana.
Okay, yeah, so it would have been late June then.
Okay.
I feel like, because I left to go to Lower Sioux about a week or so before we went to Montana.
Okay. Yeah, it was the day we were building the frames.
Yep.
Yeah, we had was it a miter? No, it was a biscuit.
A biscuit joiner.
Biscuit joiner, that's what it was. That was the day that you shipped out the E-Reezy system from your shop to Danny at Lower Sioux.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
I sent him a picture. I'm like, Santa Claus. Yeah.
It was a strange moment in my life sending an E-Reezy and 3 pallets of binder to the Jackpot Junction Casino in Minnesota.
You got to roll the dice.
But very that whole experience just, again, the oddity of shipping material to a casino was foreshadowing for that project, like how unique and how cool that project was going to be. So
let's very briefly, talk about that again.
Okay.
Because it was an amazing thing. Like for me, just to witness what's happening there, their building project on it's a tiny Indian reservation.
Yep.
Right?
Postage stamp. Yeah.
And they need housing for their community.
Yeah. And often they do what many reservations do, which is to hire from outside the reservation contractors to come and build those houses.
And that's like lowest bid. That's probably like really crappy material, right?
No, they I think they have quite a bit of freedom in who they choose, but they often get taken advantage of. And this one was very special because the crew that built this house and got it ready for us to spray was 100% Lower Sioux members, Danny and all the boys. So, really, really crazy and special in a lot of ways, generationally for the tribe. But they just had a plastering workshop. Jennifer Martin, my friend Naveed Hatfield, and then also Tim White from Texas Healthy Homes came out about 2 weeks ago and led a plastering workshop where they actually plastered the inside of that thing. We call it the raft because it's a 2-unit emergency duplex, housing duplex. Okay. Yeah. And I just talked to Danny last night, and they have a finished coat of plaster and some flooring to put in, and that thing is done.
Wow.
And they built it for under $200,000. And that includes, all of my time consulting and, all the things now. And I don't know how Danny will feel about me saying this, but they have another hempcrete house that they did cast in place because they had the material. They wanted to spray it, but they had the cast in place material. So they went ahead and did it that way, being built by an outside contractor. It is bigger than the raft, but it's going to rack in at around $400,000 or $500,000 because of this outside contractor.
Right. Huh.
So there is the proof. And for anyone at the Lower Sioux Reservation wondering if Danny is worth his value,
yes.
They were able to build a 1,500 square foot. So each unit's about 800 square feet. It's a little better than 1,500 total for under $200,000 with hempcrete.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that is... This thing just keeps evolving into a cooler and cooler story. And then juxtaposed against this outside contractor who helped them build another hempcrete house by hand, and it being, that much more expensive. It's really...
How much of that is labor cost? Because with the E-Reezy thing, you can get it done in a few days, but if you're doing cast in place, you need labor for
the cast in place. I feel like Danny and his guys did it in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And that was, they're an experienced crew now. They've done casts in place prior. They've done the spray applied. So, they're moving well. There's about
and when you have
7
a
or
team
8 of
that
them
works together well, you can get
where
some
everybody
stuff
knows
done.
what happens next is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think it was the cast in place hempcrete part that pushed that house, the other one, to being as expensive as it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's worth another update with Danny.
Okay.
Yeah, once all the cards fall here, and they've also they've also bought a pre-panelized kit from our friend Matt Marino at Homeland Hempcrete, whose panels we've sprayed. You've seen his panels in my warehouse, and you've met Matt. Yep. So they actually bought a small kit from Matt, and that'll be the last one they're doing this year. So this year they will have spray applied the raft. They'll have hand cast a very beautiful, very expensive house, and then they're also doing a tiny home out of Matt's panels. So they are running hard.
Yeah, that's awesome. And from your perspective, that's just got to just feel great to be part of it, right?
And a very small part. That's what I keep saying is I can't take credit for how cool that project is and what those guys did. I mean, the Easy is just such a small portion of what they did and what they were able to do. And the fact that was a foundation, an empty hole in the ground for 14 years up until 2 weeks before we showed up to spray it. You can't write this stuff. You can't make it up, So, yeah.
Well, getting back to our panels here, just keep bringing it back. So what we framed them with the hemp wood after they cured, and then you were like, "All right, get them out of here." And,
bring the truck.
well, I didn't though. I think it was raining that day, so I put them in the back of my Subaru, stacked them, and they're like 60 pounds each, so they're kind of heavy.
Yeah, they're heavy.
And you suggested that I paint the lumber part of it.
Right, just a little bit.
Yeah. So I took them home. I painted them, and then I lugged them in here at the end of August, and then hung them, mostly by myself.
You did a damn good job, Eric.
Thanks. They look mostly level, right? And some of my coworkers did, help me.
Yeah.
Actually, but I used like a French cleat, and hung it on there. So,
very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that was a Friday, and I came in. I guess it was Labor Day, Monday, so I came in that Tuesday, and I opened the door of my office, just like, please still be on the walls, and they were still there.
And here they are.
Yeah. Because, I think it was recommended that we find studs when I hang these cleats, but studs weren't always available, right? So we're just trusting the anchors, and
Yeah.
So
no, it worked out well, man. I feel like in a space like this, these are, decorative as much as they are functional. But if we were to actually have like a real audiophile come in here and measure the reflection of your studio, he'd probably tell us we need a couple more.
We do need a little more. Yeah. Before I hung these up, I had, well, you can see them up there, these moving blankets, like very ugly moving blankets. I had the whole place covered in that. And
refugee chic.
Yeah. My editor was like, "Oh, you built a blanket fort in your office. Great." But that made the room super dead, no bounce.
Which, again, for those of you who aren't audiophiles, is also not the best, right? Depending on what you're recording and what you're wanting out of your recording, you don't always want complete dead.
Yeah, for what I'm doing here, the audio, I'd be okay.
You want
with
dead, yeah.
But I am going to put I've got, like foam squares to put up. So it's not done yet. Ideally, I would love a big hempcrete panel there and there.
Yeah. Hey, where's the fourth one?
That's still at home. There's a small, because we had a little extra left over, but we had no pigment left.
Right. You were going to make that your pin board.
Right. Well, not done yet. But we'll bring that in. I didn't paint that one. That's just sitting at home.
Yeah.
It's like the sad beige hempcrete panel. When you see it next to these, you're like, sorry.
It was the ugly duckling of the. Speaking of which, my warehouse, that table that we cut all the hemp wood on and all the tools and everything, still right where we left it. I've been out running around quite a bit since then.
Well, that's good. That's a good sign. You're busy. You've been, just run through like where you've been lately and what, the scope of the projects you're working on.
Yeah. So after we did the panels, like we said, I flew out to Lower Sioux, and that was a week before we went together to the
Montana
IND Summer Hemp Summit. Yep.
I'm actually wearing my shirt right now under here, my Hemp Summit
Nice.
shirt.
Yeah. I've been wearing that one a lot too. It's the same company that I get my t-shirts from.
Nice shirts.
Which is Ono Hemp in Colorado, ONNO. And then, so we went to Montana. And then the day I got home, I didn't even get to spend one night in my bed. My wife forced me into the camper.
Oh, you had to go on vacation. Oh,
and then
so bad for you.
And then I had to go on vacation. And so we went down to the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, Gatlinburg, for a week. Then we were in Myrtle Beach at a really cool campground in South Carolina for a week.
And you were building hempcrete houses on vacation? Only
in my sleep, man, just tossing and turning at night, just seeing the Easy spray raining down from the walls. We went just a couple days in Cape Charles on the way back up to a really cool campground there. And then literally as soon as I got home, while I was on vacation, I'd gotten a phone call from a guy in Montana, in Ronan, which isn't all too far from Fort Benton, where we were, closer to Whitefish, in between Missoula and Whitefish. But he had done a cast-in-place project for the main body of his house, but he had built this really nice, 20-foot high cinder block garage off the side of the house. It's a real bachelor pad, like lots of room for your Montana toys, your big lifted, whatever they lift there, Jeeps or I don't know. Anyway, big lifted vehicles. But anyway, so this cinder block garage, he wanted to have hempcrete on the outside of that so that he could plaster that and carry the whole finish around the building. Right. So, and that was really cool because one of our owner operators, Doug Weist with Big Sky Hemp, he's in Montana. You probably met Doug at the show.
I think so.
In Montana there with IND, 4,000 acre family ranch. They farm, corn and soy like everybody else, but they've also been doing hemp. And Doug's nephew, Connor, actually came and took our first ever E-Reezy training back in April of 22.
Okay.
And so we fulfilled his machine, sent his machine out there, and he was waiting patiently for an excuse to unwrap it from the pallet and use it. So I called him and I said, "Hey, Doug, there's a guy named Peter. He wants to spray a house." And as you can imagine, Doug was pretty excited about that. So, and also really nice for me. So that was the second E-Reezy owner operator project, Lower Sioux being the first that I went to.
So you didn't have to bring your gear with you. You just showed up on site and
hopped in a plane. Yeah. Jumped in a plane, flew out. Doug's guys met me out there with all the equipment. Same way Danny and his guys received me at Lower Sioux. They had everything they needed ready to go. And I spent about 3 days there. We sprayed the majority of it. And then they came back and knocked it out themselves. So really, really cool example. Again, this is a concrete cinder block, CMU block building. And we sprayed 4 inches of hemp on the outside. The idea
did you have to furring strips or what did you? So
we actually used these really cool little plastic T-shaped plugs that you use when you're putting on continuous exterior insulation on a building. Okay. Like imagine like a 2-inch rigid foam or rock wool or something like that. You would drill a hole through it, 3/8 inch hole, and then you kind of just tap this plug. Okay. It reminds me distinctly of the little thing that they used to put in the middle of the pizza box to hold the box table? Up from smooshing down on the pizza. Right. Yeah. It's like one of those with an end on it that once you jam it in the hole, it's flayed out. So it doesn't pull out. But anyway, so we
like a drywall anchor.
Exactly. Yeah. So we studded the wall. Yeah.
Hope they hold.
We studded the wall out with those, and we were able to just spray 4 inches directly against the concrete. And again, the reason being is that he had this really cool rocket mass wood stove that he had built to heat the house. And it was in the garage. And the version of it that he made was really cool. It's designed for you to take a 55-gallon drum and pack it with sawdust And then there's a sleeve that you pull out of the middle, which creates a hole. So it turns it into like a big fire brick, you know,
wow.
and you light just a little fire in there and it smolders through that. Anyway, very efficient heating system that lives in his garage. So I was joking with him. I said, Peter, it's probably going to be really uncomfortable in this garage over the winter.
Too warm.
When you're firing this thing and you've got hempcrete on the outside. So anyway, the idea being that the hempcrete is a blanket on the outside that isolates the mass of that concrete, because concrete is very massive. Once you heat it up or cool it down, it takes forever for it to lose that energy. But when it's concrete cinder block, warm on the inside and freezing cold Montana weather on the outside with nothing, you're losing all that energy to the outside constantly. So that 4 inches of hempcrete creates that thermal break. So once it's plastered, you know, you've basically isolated the mass of those blocks and it will be incredibly efficient. So that's a really cool, and this is a lot of what Damien does with the system in France. It's a lot of retrofitting against existing masonry. Right. So anyway, so that was the beginning of September, end of August and the beginning of September. And then we had a couple of big projects that got punted to spring. They were supposed to happen spring of this year. They got punted to fall and then punted again to spring. This is construction drama. This is why it's miserable being a subcontractor, trade contractor. It's really hard to keep a schedule because any number of things can derail the general contractor schedule. And you're the last one to come in, right? So, yeah, end of September and the beginning of October, we went down to Greenbuild, which we did a little podcast on there.
We called you up from there. Or you called me or something.
That's right. Yeah, I was hanging out with Greg and Tommy from and Ashiel from Hempitecture were sharing a booth up at the front.
Yep.
We were part of the booth of Building Transparency. Learned a lot at Greenbuild. Really, really great to be at, again, a non-hemp cannabis farm show type of trade show, like a real building trade show for me. It was really cool. And then a couple weeks after that, we got called up to Newburyport by David and the guys up at the Hillside Center. So
tell me a little bit more about that. I know we've talked about it before, but remind me what that project is.
Our third Easy owner-operator supported project this year that we attended. There's actually 2 or 3 other Easy owner-operator projects that happened that we weren't there in person for, which is really cool for me. But these are the guys up in Newburyport, Massachusetts at the Hillside Center for Sustainable Living, which is an existing development condo complex, and everything sustainable, man. They have, solar panels on every surface. The existing units were built to be very efficient, although they were built with concrete and EPS foam, similar to the garage I was describing to you. Yeah. EPS foam on the outside, concrete slab on the inside. Once you heat up or cool that concrete down, it stays like that. So very efficient, but from a sustainability perspective, obviously a little bit off the mark with all that concrete and foam. But the really cool thing about this project is that they're doing full section tilt-up wall panels. So they're building those on site. They have a temporary facility on site where they frame up these panels. And then this year, they sprayed hempcrete into them while they were laying flat, threw a base layer of plaster on them, and then stored them. Wow. And then in the meantime here, towards the end of the summer, they actually got the foundations and the portions of the next set of units that are going to be made out of hempcrete poured. Okay. And then right on those pads, they framed up and laid out the really big panels, which were the gable end panels and this long waist panel for both the north and south face of the building. They still had to do those. So they spent all summer kind of doing the smaller panels that fit in between. And then the plan all along was to literally build these panels flat in front of where they were going to get tipped up, and just spray them. And they brought us up, and really cool project because we ran dueling E-Reezys. There's me on one end with an E-Reezy and Alex and the Hillside guys on the other end, and we worked our way towards the middle. And as is typical on an E-Reezy project, we kind of pushed ourselves the first day to make sure we were in good shape because, again, Jordan and Max were showing up to
Sunflower Films.
Yep, to do a little filming. Good. So that was really cool. But, again, put the pressure on us. So that first day with 2 E-Reezys, we sprayed over 1,100 cubic feet in one day. And to put that in perspective for you, that's pretty close to 200 bags of material in one day with 2 machines. which is our average project size. Somehow, even though all of my projects have been very different, they're all, modestly sized residential, rural residential homes. Usually somewhere around 200 bags. That takes us anywhere from 3 to 5 days, depending on, how much other work we have to do on site as far as forming or cleaning or whatever. We did it in one day.
Nice.
Pretty gnarly. And it wasn't a short day. It was about an 11-hour day, but it wasn't a ridiculous day either.
Yeah.
But that's because we're spraying the panels flat on the ground, and it's high volume. There's 16-inch thick panels. So everything's at human scale. There's no scaffolding. There's no moving elements. And it's a big raw construction site where they have all kinds of fabulous big equipment to move pieces of our equipment around and whatnot. So anyway, so we, the first week we moved towards the middle and culminated on Friday when Jordan and Max were there, with Alex and I spraying the same panel right next to each other. So I got some really high quality shots of me and Alex right next to each other, 2 Ereesies going, the stuff of dreams for me. And then the following week, right away, we brought in this big mortar plaster pump sprayer that we'd actually used on Michael Moniero's project, Impactful Ventures, the Cape Cod Hemp House. And Michael and Mary actually joined us too on Friday and came and visited the site,
nice.
Which was really fun. Yeah, it was nice to show that off to them.
Shout out to Mike and Mary at Impactful Ventures, who are one of our generous sponsors for the show.
Yep. So yeah, they came out, they got to see a bit of it. And again, we hired out this same plaster mortar pump sprayer that 2.5 years ago, we used to spray the outside of Michael's house.
Okay.
And Michael had actually convinced the rental center to buy this piece of equipment. So it was brand new.
For you next time.
It was brand new when we used it at Michael's place. Seeing it again 2 years later, it only had about 200 hours on it, which equipment rental wise is like nothing. It's 10 working days, 20 working days, 10-hour days, something like that. But anyway, so we got this machine back, and it's a really high volume mortar pump sprayer. So you can mix batch right into it. It's got this big, long, heavy black hose, and it runs up to a nozzle that has a little bit of air pressure in it. And laying flat on the ground, we put, guides along the edges of the panels that were up, the 3/8 of an inch that we wanted to apply the plaster. Sprayed it on, and then you just had two guys come by and, perfect. So that was really cool. Got to share that experience with a buddy of mine named Trevor, who I met through Hempstone. He's been on a bunch of our projects with us. He's up in Vermont, sort of a, freelance subcontractor now. Lots of experience though in natural building, really, really cool projects. So anyway, sitting here right now, Thursday last week, they tilted up all of these panels, which first time I talked to David about this, I was absolutely terrified by the things that he was saying he wanted to be able to do right away. He said, Cam, how soon after we spray these can we stand them up? And I was like, I don't know, 6-8 weeks. And he goes, that's not going to work.
I don't have that kind of time.
I'm like, David, how quickly do you need to stand them up? He said, 7 to 10 days. So I said, David, we better try this, so that's what I did last year. This time we went up and we did a couple of test panels. This is before he bought the Ereesie or any of that. So, and it worked, as crazy as it was. So the day Thursday that they're tilting these panels up, I'm back at home taking my, my 2-week break and, nervous, waiting for the phone call and the pictures of like some panel that got tilted up that everything fell out of, or, just waiting for that, just, trying not to manifest it.
Out.
Just
like crushing people when it falls.
Well, there's always that too. When you're talking about big tilt up panels, I mean, rigging is a science.
But thankfully, nothing happened. It was without incident.
Thankfully, knock on hemp wood.
It's even luckier than regular wood,
especially when it's on a Hempcrete panel. Thankfully, all went off without a hitch. But you got to give credit again to those guys. I mean, that's not me. That's not the Ereesie. That's those guys and their experience and how they know how to build panels. The concrete ones that they were making before were dramatically heavier. That same gable end, the very big one, when it was made out of concrete, was 30,000 pounds. Very, very unforgiving. Very unforgiving. That's a $5,000 to $7,000 an hour crane.
Wow.
So you have to be Everybody has to be synced and moving.
They didn't need a crane for these.
They did, but a smaller one. And because, again, that same gable that was 30,000 pounds when it's concrete is only 9,000 pounds as hempcrete.
Still not light.
Not at all.
Yeah. I would love to go visit that. That sounds like
I want you to come.
Trip.
I want you to come.
I have a handful of really good reasons to go to Massachusetts.
Well,
soon.
Let me add another really high quality reason.
All right. So heads up, Massachusetts.
Yep.
We're coming back.
Anyway, so we're there. That was the north face that we did, and they put in all the little waste panels that they've been spraying all summer. And then literally this week, they are framing up the south face, which is mirror corresponding gable and waste wall panel. There'll be 11 of them waiting for me. And we're going to go back and do it again. It's pretty gnarly. Yeah.
Now, are these condos or rentals?
They are. They're condos. They're rentals. Condos. Yeah.
Well, no, I guess there's a difference.
Condo rentals, rental condos.
Like, because you own a condo, but you rent a rental.
They're rentals.
Okay.
Yeah, they are rentals. So I guess condo is an inappropriate word for it, but they're anywhere from 1 to 3 bedroom.
Okay.
So there's 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. So
right.
there
if
is
you want to live in
like
a
option.
Sustainable neighborhood, that's your place.
Most all of the residents are people who are quite happy to pay what it costs to live there because David and the Hillside guys thought of everything when it comes to sustainability.
Wow.
Literally, gray water, rainwater system for flushing toilets, high efficiency, passive house performance buildings, whether it's hempcrete or the concrete, solar, shared cut of the solar. They all get a cut of the solar that's captured every month.
Wow.
And, shared community garden spaces, gathering spaces. I mean, permeable paving, native edible plantings.
That seems like such a great model for
all of it.
Everywhere. Like we could replicate
all
this
of it.
everywhere. Yeah. Like humans deserve what? To be comfortable? Do we deserve that?
I think we deserve to be comfortable and live the lifestyle that we want to live without it being deleterious and to the planet or detrimental to our own health.
Yeah. Right on.
And yeah, it's our responsibility to ask for those things, right? You have to say to your real estate agent, I want to see a home that was built sustainably. And the first time you say that, you're going to get a really wild look at your real estate agent. But if they hear it enough, they'll start talking about it.
Right.
Builders will start talking about it. We hold builders to an incredibly low standard. Our standard of quality for a home is what is the flooring and what is the countertops. That's it. That's how we judge if someone has a nice house, isn't it, Eric? Do they have hardwood floor? Do they have a marble countertop?
I'm like, do I have a roof over my head?
Well,
yeah. All right. Thank you.
Right.
I'm simple. I'm a simpleton. I've said it before.
You're a simple man. I'm a simple man too. But this is what a new home buyer looks for.
And we as humans have to be able to not only imagine the world we want to live in, but then verbalize it.
Manifest it.
And that's something that we do. Like, you're a manifester.
I'm
you
trying,
make stuff happen.
I think.
I feel like I've manifested some
You're
things.
manifesting too, dude.
These to me are a symbol of that because it makes me laugh when I come into the office. I'm like, oh yeah, these. Because it started out as just an idea, right?
Yep.
I'm like, I wonder if I could do that.
Yep.
And now, yeah, I can do that. This podcast has kind of been a vehicle for that for me.
100%.
From even the podcast itself of like, can I make a podcast? Yeah, apparently I can make a podcast.
For us too, man, in this area, having you here.
Yeah.
Like that's no small part of the hemp industry and the success of it in Pennsylvania so far. Good documentation, good reporting, like manifest it. Yeah. Getting
back to hempcrete houses, is there, like, let's say I want to retrofit my home or even build a new hempcrete house. Is there money available from the state or federal government to help me finance that or pay for that?
More and more, I think there will be.
Yeah.
And as of right now, there are a handful of programs, token amounts of money, in my opinion, that you can apply for if you demonstrate that you are insulating your home to a certain standard of, energy efficiency, right? Like there's small incentives for that, $1,500, $2,000, something like that. It's enough It's enough that if you're going to do it, you're going to want to apply for those things. I think it was Tommy from Hempitecture put out a list of those on his LinkedIn at one point. I can try to fish that out for you. You could put a link to that. But 3 programs, small for homeowners where, if you can demonstrate that you've hit a certain performance standard. Now, this is specific to Pennsylvania. Massachusetts, there's a reason why David's going for passive house performance with these buildings. And being able to document it, because there are subsidies in the state of Massachusetts for that, and they are considerable. So, we're a little bit in the dark ages here in PA when it comes to stuff like that. But I think you're going to see more and more of it. And especially when you consider, the national federal mandate last year for all federal buildings, any branch of the government that owns real estate now has to account for their carbon footprint in the materials they're using to build and in the operational carbon of the building.
And that's government, or is that also military?
That's all of it.
Wow.
All of it.
That is
any federal building. And there are branches of the military like the Army that are the single largest real estate holder of all branches of the government. And they are under the same pressure now. I hope that doesn't disappear in 2 years. I think we're a little bit beyond that. I would hope it wouldn't, but it could. But
do you mean like politically, electionally?
Yeah.
Let's not go there.
There's a chance that it could disappear, but we're going to be optimistic. And I think we're a little bit past that. I think we're past that. And I think once you have something like that that's hit, all federal buildings and offices, that they all have to consider that. There will be certain offices and organizations within the government that will use discretionary funds to do this anyway, even if it's not a mandate anymore. So it's a really exciting time to be in the sustainable building material scene. I'll tell you that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow. This is great.
Yeah.
Sitting here talking to you. Usually
I feel like we got more comfortable.
Yeah.
We got more comfortable as it went on.
We did, yeah. Because usually my thing is I'm looking at someone in the Zoom screen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I'm out on a location with my Kermit the Frog microphone.
Right.
Which I love, by the way. I love my Kermit the Frog microphone.
It's a gift. That was a gift.
It was
wasn't
a gift, yes.
Yeah.
It was a gift from Sunflower Films.
Nice. Yeah.
Because they believe in me. They believe in my documentarianism. Yeah.
Hollywood.
You've called me that a couple times. Do you care to explain what's going on there?
So that's just a really childish reference to the fact that you had the Sunflower Films guys following you around in Montana. So shameless childish reference to Eric's budding career as a Netflix star.
Movie star. Yeah. Yeah. They followed me around at NOCO too.
So, did they?
Yeah.
Well, and there's something to Hollywood Herlock. I mean, that's just, you sound like you're straight out of a spaghetti Western.
Yeah, it felt like a Western name. And we were walking down Main Street Front Street in Fort Benton. I had my posse with me. We had just survived the rapids of the Missouri River.
That's right. Yeah.
Some of us almost died.
Yep.
But none of us did. So a lot to be thankful for.
The first and last of the Hollywood Herlock river trip organization.
No. Oh no, I'll be on that river again the next time I'm in.
Just as long as you're not leading us, that's fine. You just
come on. They said go to the left. I said, come on, guys, go to the left, and
everybody went right.
Yeah. So anyway, Cameron McIntosh from Americhanvre.
Yes.
Americhanvre.
Yep.
Thank you for joining me here. It's great to have you in the studio. Thank you for being our inaugural guest.
I love
here in person. And let's build some more of these panels this winter.
I'm with it. And I'd be really interested to hear feedback from your audience as to whether or not they enjoy this format. If it's easier to listen to this, is it different listening to an in-person videoed podcast than it would be normally, without the video?
That's a good question.
I'm curious. I want to know.
We're going to find out.
We're going to find out.
So they can call your number directly? And
Sure. Yeah. No, not at all.
But these panels, like this isn't a once and done thing. This I'm seeing as a prototype.
Yeah.
So if anyone out there is interested in what Herlock designed, Americhan built,
Hempcrete panels. Yeah.
We're putting it out there. This is kind of venture.
Think larger too. I mean, they don't have to be stationed on a wall. You could have a feature wall or a dividing wall, or, there's a few people that make, functional objects, coffee tables, things like that. Right. So dream big, manifest.
Yeah. But reach out because, we want to build hemp things for you.
Hemp things, that's it. Hemp Things LLC.
All right. Thanks, Cameron.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you
Eric.
all for listening.
Appreciate it.
That's it. We did it.
Cut.
All right. Well, that was fun. Thank you for listening. And thanks to Cameron for making his way down to the studio last month. So, my name is Eric Herlock. I am the digital editor at Lancaster Farming newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. Check us out online at lancasterfarming.com. All right, if you have questions or comments or concerns for me, you can email me. Send it to podcast@lancasterfarming.com. Or you want to send me an old school letter, you can do that too. Send it to Lancaster Farming, care of Eric, 21 West Main Street, Ephrata, Pennsylvania, 17522. All right. So, staying with the theme of having a plan, we'll see what happens next week. So, like I said, I'm hitting the road early tomorrow morning. And, all right. Until next time, I will see you in the newspaper.
Industrial hemp.
This episode of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2023 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written, recorded, edited, and produced by Eric Herlock. The music you hear throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow, including the music from the Farmhouse trailer. Yeah. Okay, goodbye.